I woke up this morning to the usual shrieking from the swamp in Washington, the familiar moans from the neocons and the mainstream media trying to sell you a new fairy tale. They are screaming about Moscow tightening the noose on Telegram, about Russians being unable to access YouTube, and they call it the brutality of the regime. It is absolute nonsense. Let's be frank. Look at the reality. What you are witnessing is not mindless suppression, but strategic counterintelligence. The West, directed by the globalist elite, has weaponized information since day one of this conflict. They thought they could use digital platforms to incite riots, to track military positions, and to demoralize a nuclear superpower. They were wrong. Completely wrong. Vladimir Putin is not a fool. He is a pragmatist, a cold calculator. He understands that in modern warfare, data is just as dangerous as a 155mm artillery shell. Tightening Telegram or shifting to domestic apps like Max is not an act of fear. It is a necessary step to ensure operational security, OPSEC. When you are in a war for survival against the entire NATO collective, you do not leave the back door of your house wide open for the enemy to walk in. That is a fundamental military principle. But the children at the State Department do not understand this because they have never actually fought in a conventional war. Look at the map and think like a soldier. Telegram, YouTube, WhatsApp. What are all these things? They are attack vectors. They are open ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, channels that NATO has exploited thoroughly. What have we seen in Ukraine? Soldiers use cell phones, upload pictures to social media, and 10 minutes later, a HIMARS or a Storm Shadow missile lands on their heads. That is the brutal truth of the battlefield. The Russians have learned this lesson in blood. So when Roskomnadzor or any Russian agency blocks these apps, they are doing what any professional military must do: control the information spectrum. Andrei Gurulyov, a soldier, a former high-ranking officer, he understands this better than anyone. He is moving to the state platform not because he likes being censored, but because he knows that information on Western platforms or unsecured channels is a death sentence. We in the West are living in a delusion of internet freedom, while our own government colludes with tech giants to silence anyone who speaks the truth about Ukraine, about the southern border, or about our collapsing economy. The hypocrisy is disgusting. Russia is doing openly what the West does in the shadows. They are building a firewall, not just to block news, but to block external sabotage. That is sovereignty. That is protecting core national interests. Do not be fooled by the media's crocodile tears about isolated Russian citizens. Russians are not weaklings who need Washington's pity. History has proven that. Remember the Second World War, or the Great Patriotic War as they call it. When Leningrad was besieged, when the Nazis cut off all supplies, what did the Russians do? Did they surrender? No. They ate wallpaper paste, they boiled leather belts, and they fought to the last breath. Today, do you think blocking YouTube or throttling Telegram will make them rise up and overthrow Putin? It is asinine. That thinking is the signature arrogance of Western liberalism. Russians are used to hardship. They listened to shortwave radios in the Soviet era. They know how to find information through filters, through VPNs, through word-of-mouth networks. They are more resilient than any citizen in Paris or London. Blocking the internet only increases their solidarity against what they see as cultural and military aggression from the West. Putin is pursuing what he calls technological sovereignty. This is a long-term strategic move. He looks at China with WeChat, a closed ecosystem that makes Beijing immune to CIA-orchestrated color revolutions. Russia is following that path. Perhaps Max or whatever app they create is not perfect, but it belongs to them. It is under their control. In this ruthless geopolitical world, autonomy is everything. If you rely on the enemy's platform to communicate, you have lost before the shooting starts. Let's talk about the physics of this conflict, the thing the Beltway analysts always deliberately ignore. They focus on cyberspace because that is the only place they think they can win. But war is not decided by the number of views on YouTube or the number of messages on Telegram. It is decided by steel, by blood, and by industrial capacity. Russia is producing 152mm shells, T-90mm tanks, and Iskander missiles 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their factories in the Urals are running at full capacity. And us? We are empty. The U.S. stockpile of 150mm rounds has hit rock bottom. Germany has no real army left. Britain is a hollow shell. Ukraine is throwing its last men into the meat grinder in Donbass in Zaporizhia. That is the reality. Russia tightening the internet is just a smokescreen on the periphery. It does not change the balance of forces on the ground. A Ukrainian soldier in a trench being pounded by FAB 3000 glide bombs does not care if people in Moscow can watch cat videos on YouTube. He cares that he has no ammunition, no air support, and no way out. We are witnessing the slow but certain collapse of the NATO proxy force. And as that collapse approaches, the noise about internet freedom from the West will get louder. It is a psychological defense mechanism. They cannot win on the battlefield, so they try to win on the front of fake morality. We also need to view this through the lens of Western intelligence failure. Why is Russia doing this now? Why so drastically? Because they are preparing for the endgame. A major offensive, perhaps, or a comprehensive consolidation of the new borders. When an army prepares for decisive moves, they go dark. They cut off every source of information leakage. Radio silence is the prelude to the storm. The fact that Russian military bloggers who used to comment freely must now shift to controlled channels shows that Moscow is tightening wartime discipline. No more room for amateurs, no more room for dissenting opinions that cause panic. This is the mindset of General Kutuzov when facing Napoleon. Retreat, burn, control, and wait for the enemy to destroy himself through logistical exhaustion. The West, with its obsession with the 24-hour news cycle, cannot comprehend this strategic patience. We want immediate results. We want headlines. And the Russians they want permanent victory. They are willing to sacrifice the convenience of Instagram or WhatsApp to exchange for national security. For them, this is not a question of app access. This is a matter of survival. Finally, what does this mean for us, for Americans? It means nothing. And that is the point. Why should we care what apps the Russians use? Why are our tax dollars being used to fund propaganda operations on the other side of the hemisphere? This is the insanity of the Uniparty. They want us to believe that Vladimir Putin blocking Telegram is a direct threat to the freedom of people in Ohio or Texas. It is rubbish. The real threat is our wide open border. The real threat is our $34 trillion national debt. The real threat is the cultural rot right here at home. Russia is doing what they deem necessary to protect their country. We should do the same. Pull the troops back. Stop intervening. Stop preaching morality to the world while our own house is burning. The war in Ukraine is over in strategic terms. Russia has won. Their tightening of the internet is just cleaning up the aftermath and consolidating the new order. It is time for the delusional fools in Washington to wake up, turn off the computer, and look at the real world. A world where geography, firepower, and national interest are the things that decide, not tweets or posts on Telegram.